UFC Fight Night, Kape versus Almabayev is this week. I'm going to give you a full card prediction breakdown of all 12 fights on this card, starting with Montana De La Rosa versus Luana Carolina. I am going to go with Luana Carolina. I think she just has the much better striking in this fight. She did lose pretty brutally to Molly McCann, which is a rough one to see, but she's on a 3-fight winning streak. Montana De La Rosa, I guess, just won her last fight against Andrea Lee by split decision. And Andrea Lee, we'll go over her a little bit later, but she's been on a 5-fight losing streak, so she hasn't been doing too well either. She is decent on the feet, but Luana Carolina has all the momentum coming into this fight. Very solid with her hands, very fast, and honestly, JJ Aldrich, Montana De La Rosa lost to, Tatiana Suarez submitted, Macy Barber. It's not really the worst of losses to have, so maybe she can win against Luana Carolina, but I just think Luana Carolina coming into this fight has all the momentum. I think she can win this one by a decision. So let's move on. We have Charles Johnson versus Ramazan Temirov. I am going to go with Charles Johnson in this fight. Ramazan Temirov, striking-wise, he has a lot of power in his hands, and he does load up quite a bit. He is going to be the much shorter fighter, and I'll get into that in a second. But I think Charles Johnson, when I watched the Joshua Van fight, and I really wanted to see how he did against boxers who are a little bit smaller than him. This is Jake Hadley. Joshua Van ended up getting finished towards the end of that fight, but Charles Johnson did a good job being patient, staying on the outside and picking his shots and being fast and throwing stuff down the middle. We do know Charles Johnson does have good takedown defense as well, but I think against Ramazan Temirov, who is 5'4" with 63 inches of reach, Charles Johnson will have a 7-inch reach advantage in this fight, and I think he's just going to be able to pick apart Temirov on the outside. It's what I worry for Temirov. Temirov can land for sure on Johnson, and I could see him getting a finish here, but I'm just going to take it with Charles Johnson, just staying on the outside, picking him apart. I think he's going to be faster with his hands. He is a little bit older as well, and honestly, how many people are taking? Yeah, a lot of people are taking Johnson here. It says Temirov's the favorite, which I think is very interesting, and I can see him catching Johnson. Like, his hands are pretty decent, but I just think that's a really big range difference in terms of striking here. So I'm going to stick with Johnson. I'm going to say by decision. Let's move on. We have Andrea Lee versus JJ Aldrich. Going to have to go with JJ Aldrich. JJ Aldrich can wrestle a little bit. Andrea Lee cannot wrestle at all. If this fight goes to the ground, I figure JJ Aldrich can kind of write it out, and I do think JJ Aldrich could probably, I hate saying that fucking name, I can't speak after, JJ Aldrich can stand up on the feet with Andrea Lee as well. So I'm going to go JJ Aldrich by decision. Not too much analysis for that one. Let's move on. We have Lucas Almeida versus Danny Silva. I like this fight. Danny Silva, a prospect I'm definitely looking into. Very good hands, a lot of tools on the feet, very fast with his hands as well. He did slow down a little bit as the fight went on in his last fight against Joshua Kleebau and then again against Angel Pacheco, but his hands always looked pretty crisp. Again, just a lot of tools, but Joshua Kleebau, he went to split decision with him, which is kind of a rougher look, but I think against Lucas Almeida, who looked a little bit slow against Timmy Kwamba at the beginning of that fight was just, I guess he went first, and maybe that's what it was, or Lucas Almeida wasn't reacting in time, but Timmy Kwamba was landing on Lucas Almeida, and Lucas Almeida kind of looked shot. Like, it was 3 hits to his face at a certain point, especially early on. But then Lucas Almeida started going, and Timmy Kwamba starts to turn into a little bit of a punching bag sometimes in his fights, and I just think Danny Silva is just a much higher level striker. He's gonna be there relatively defensively more than a Timmy Kwamba. Lucas Almeida does have some decent power in his hands, but I think I'm gonna go with the younger guy here, who's gonna keep getting better, has a lot of tools on the feet. I think he can land on Lucas Almeida in this fight. I don't think he's going to get a finish. He hasn't gotten a finish in his last 2 fights, and this one probably goes to a decision. I just think he probably stays out of trouble more than a Kwamba, who just is way too hittable in his fights. And Lucas Almeida is aging, and I don't think he's close to the striker that Danny Silva is. So let's move on. We have Douglas Silva de Andrade versus John Castañeda. I'm going with John Castañeda in this fight. If you want to use MMA math, Douglas Silva de Andrade lost to Miles Johns. John Castañeda beat Miles Johns 3 years ago by submission, so we got that finish over him. But just in their fights, John Castañeda is actually a pretty solid fighter. Douglas Silva de Andrade, he's getting older. You could probably put them in a similar category like a couple years ago, but he isn't very active either. 8 months, 1 year and 9 months, 2 years and 7 months, 3 years ago, 3 years and 4 months. Like, the activity is getting lower and lower. He's almost 40 years of age. John Castañeda has looked pretty decent in his last couple of fights. Like, look at his losses. What is it? Daniel Marcos and Mini Oliveira. Like, those aren't necessarily bad losses to have. And he looked good against Kang O Kang and Moon Gaffarov. So I'm going to go with John Castañeda here, maybe by finish. Probably a decision, because he doesn't have, like, crazy finishing ability, even though he did finish Miles Johns, who's really just a super athletic dude. I'm going to go John Castañeda by decision. I don't really see, like, a submission or a KO victory in terms of this fight, and Douglas Silva de Andrade is just getting way too old, in my opinion, especially for bantamweight. I think there's going to be a difference, especially with these two fighting, at least with speed and maybe some power as well. So let's move on. We have Ricardo Ramos versus Chepe Mariscal. I'm going to go Chepe Mariscal. I'm going to say by decision. I think he's going to hurt Ricardo Ramos a lot. You saw Joshua Kleebau drop Ricardo Ramos a couple of times, and basically what kind of saved Ricardo Ramos, and I think he got hurt in like the first round pretty badly, but then I think I want to say it's the first round. I might be wrong. It could have been like the second round or third round, but Joshua Kaliba like slips. I think it was the first round, and Ricardo Ramos like takes his back, and that kind of stopped the entire momentum of Joshua Kaliba. And Joshua Kaliba wasn't like the highest IQ fighter either, so that could be been a problem too. But Chepe Mariscal has looked pretty good in the UFC. If you look at his losses too, I mean, outside of like maybe a couple that are a little bit rough, but Steve Garcia, not a bad loss to have. Joe Anderson Brittle got brutalized in that one, I will say. That was a pretty rough fight for him. Bryce Mitchell, I mean, he's fought in so many UFC level opponents. Gregor Gillespie, it's kind of crazy in the regional scene at least. But Chepe Mariscal, good power in his hands, really skilled on the feet. My worry is that if he knocks down Ricardo Ramos, Ramos can kind of just stay on his back and kind of hold a really good grappling position, which kind of stops Chepe from advancing and maybe riding it out on the ground at certain moments, because Ricardo Ramos is very dangerous on the ground. So I am going to go with Chepe Mariscal here. I don't think he KOs Ricardo Ramos, but I do think he beats him pretty badly. I'll say 30-27. I think he drops him a couple times over the course of the rounds here. Let's move on. We have Austen Lane versus Mario Pinto. I'm gonna go with Mario Pinto. Austen Lane, although he did get the win over Rebellis de Spain, who does have a pretty massive hole in his grappling, which is why he was cut immediately, which is very interesting. But if you're getting out wrestled by Austen Lane, I guess, who is a good athlete, I think didn't he play like football or something? He's a good athlete. It's still a really rough look to see, especially with how he got KO'd by Justin Tapa and Johanna Denise. Mario Pinto has really good hands. They do have very similar reaches, very similar heights, except for Pinto is 10 years younger than Austen Lane in this fight. And I'm just going to go with Pinto. Much better skill on the feet, lots of KO power, and we've seen how Austen Lane does against guys with pretty brutal KO power. So I'm going to go Mario Pinto by KO in the first round. Let's move on. We have Danny Barlow versus Sam Patterson. Very interesting fight. This is a very 50-50 fight, which is, based on the odds, you wouldn't think so. I think I might take the upset here of Sam Patterson. I've been really going back and forth on this fight, and it's kind of weird to say with the odds, but Danny Barlow, outside of his last fight, he's always been super good on the feet. He was aggressive in his last couple of fights, not against Nikolai Veretennikov, who you just saw get dominated by Vanderford and finished on the ground. And I thought Danny Barlow was like a much better prospect, but he was very patient in that fight, played the range game, just picking him apart, tearing up the legs, and then just being smart on the feet, throwing straight shots. But Danny Barlow has always been kind of an aggressive guy. Eventually saw the finish against Josh Quinlan. I think he couldn't really find it early on. It was looking a little rough for him, because I would at least think he would have like ran through a guy like Josh Quinlan. But got a really nice win over Raheem Force on the Contender Series. But has always gotten these nice KOs on the regional scene. And then that last fight, he was just very patient, wasn't really going for it. In this one against Sam Patterson, his chin doesn't really move. His head's there to be hit. He has really fast hands, I will say, and he is a good grappler. And he did end up, I think he did end up going up to like 170. He was at 155 where he got brutally KO'd against Yanal Ashmouz. Moved up to 170, and then he's just taking these shots like nothing. I will say Danny Barlow does have a lot of power, and if he is aggressive in this fight, I think it will help him quite a bit. But his last fight, where he's just super patient against a guy like Nikolai Veretennikov, went to split decision, a guy who just got dominated by Vanderford, who I think is, at least I thought was a lot less skilled than a guy like Danny Barlow. It does worry me. Danny Barlow, I believe, went for a couple trips in that last fight against Veretennikov, and he just doesn't look... He's 29. I think he doesn't have a really good developed grappling game, and that's what really worries me here. I think that might be a big advantage for Sam Patterson in this fight, who's very fast on the feet. They will be very similar sizes. Sam Patterson, a very big dude, especially 170. I mean, he's 6'3". I don't know how many 6'3", 170 pounders there are, but he's a very lengthy dude. I would say Danny Barlow's a little bit more well built, but Sam Patterson in his last fight against Kiefer Crosby is a much smaller opponent. He was able to kind of just take him down due to his size, and got, I think, straightened the mount and then found the arm triangle. Looked pretty impressive there. I really wonder if he's going to be able to do that against a guy like Danny Barlow, which does worry me here. But I am going to take Sam Patterson. I will say this too. This year, I believe I saw some kind of stat. I think undefeated fighters have like a 30% win rate or something like that. It was pretty rough so far this year. So it can definitely happen. I wouldn't be surprised if Danny Barlow just goes out there and chins him. I'm wasting all this time breaking down this fight and end up taking Sam Patterson here, where Danny Barlow can literally just put him out cold, because there have been some chin issues with Sam Patterson, at least at 155. So I do worry about that a little bit. But at 170, it seems like he's taking the shots better. He's very fast on the feet. He does have the grappling game there. I'm going to go with Sam Patterson here. My worry is I don't know if he's going to be able to submit Danny Barlow. I think as this fight goes on, maybe in the second or third round, he might be able to find some openings in the takedowns where Danny Barlow is just caught off balance, or he's able to find an opening on the feet. But I'm going to go Sam Patterson here. I'm going to say by decision. I don't think he submits Danny Barlow, even though he is the better grappler here. I think Danny Barlow might be a little bit too patient, and maybe that was just a one-off on that fight. You do see that with some fighters where specific fights, they look a little rough, and then I guess maybe with the chin issues of Sam Patterson, maybe goes out there and is aggressive and finds that shot on the feet. But I'm going to go Sam Patterson. I think he finds a couple takedowns in the second and third, and I think he kind of just rides out that position. Danny Barlow, just a little bit too inexperienced in that area, and I think he's going to have a hard time getting up. So that's my big underdog of this card. Going with Sam Patterson by decision. I'm going to say 29-28. Let's move on. We have William Gomis versus Hyder Amil. I want to take Hyder Amil, but I think I might have to just stick with William Gomis in this fight. He does a really good job at being super technical on the feet, very fast. He isn't the most fun guy to watch, I will say. He doesn't throw too many strikes. He kind of just ekes out rounds with points, which is, I guess, is a little bit worrying when you have a guy like Hyder Amil, Joe Anderson Brito, who will make it a fire fight and will kind of force you to fight their way. And I think that's going to be a very interesting test here for William Gomis in this one. Because Joe Anderson Brito, I thought he should have won that fight. It was a pretty rough decision in my opinion. And Joe Anderson Brito did get taken down by Gomis early on. But then you saw Brito on the offensive wrestling side later on in the fight. Hyder Amil can wrestle. He is very, I wouldn't say it's good striking, but it's like he's definitely a brawler for sure. He keeps his chin out there. I do worry if William Gomis is going to be able to hang with that style of Amil, where he's just running away, and maybe Amil will shoot for a takedown, hold him up against the fence in the clinch, and then land a couple punches, and then go crazy like he did in that last fight against Jung Lee, where it was just an insane fight immediately. I don't mind a Hyder Amil upset here. He is a little bit older, almost 35. I just think William Gomis is just going to be able to stay on the outside. He can wrestle a little bit. Joe Anderson Brito is a really good grappler, and he's just a very big and strong dude. So maybe that might be the difference here, where Hyder Amil is just a good wrestler. Maybe he can't really establish too good of a grappling game. But I believe Hyder Amil did train with the Diaz brothers. Maybe I might be a little bit wrong there. He is from San Francisco, but I'm just going to go Gomis here. I think he's going to stay on his back foot, stay on the outside, land a couple good punches. I don't know if Hyder Amil is going to be able to find the takedown on him. But I'm going to go William Gomis by decision. I do worry, though, that Hyder can make this a firefight and maybe catch Gomis on the chin and take him down and force him to worry about that. Like, there's a very big worry there. I really don't mind Hyder Amil winning this one, but it's just a little bit too much of a leap for me, especially after taking Sam Patterson in the last fight. So, moving on, we have Nasrat Haqparast versus Esteban Ribovics. On paper, I was thinking, why the hell is Ribovics such a big favorite? And then I rewatched their fights, and I forgot about the Jared Gordon fight against Nasrat Haqparast, where Nasrat Haqparast, I always thought he's pretty good. Maybe I need to start thinking more highly of Jared Gordon, but Jared Gordon was landing pretty damn good on Nasrat Haqparast in that fight. So it does worry me for Nasrat Haqparast, and I am taking Esteban Ribovics. His boxing has looked really good, and I honestly am surprised that Ribovics is doing so well in the UFC. Like, he seemed like one of those fighters that was just a straight-up dog, and maybe he got a bad go of it. I think the Lo Gradzhabov fight was on short notice as well, and he is a pretty good wrestler he's fighting against, even though he does have good grappling and does find his ways out of those positions. Esteban Ribovics is a dog on the feet. He's going to go forward, he's going to pressure you, and he's going to put his boxing on you. I don't know if Nasrat Haqparast, after seeing that Jared Gordon fight, can deal with Esteban Ribovics too well. So I'm going to go with Esteban Ribovics here. I think his boxing is just going to be better than Haqparast. I think he's going to find his shots. I think he's going to land better on Haqparast in this fight too. So I'm going to go Ribovics. I don't think he KOs Haqparast. I can't remember the last time Haqparast was KO'd. I believe he was... When did he get KO'd? He got KO'd by Drew Dober in 2020. I don't think Ribovics can get the KO on him. Maybe he can find that shot, but I'm going to go Ribovics here, just pressuring Nasrat Haqparast, finding the better shots, and just winning it on the scorecards due to damage. Let's move on. We have Cody Brundage versus Julian Marquez. I'm going with Cody Brundage. Marquez, his chin's not very good. Brundage can wrestle. He's got okay hands, I will say. I mean, there's not really too much to say about this fight. I'm surprised it's the co-main event, honestly. This is, maybe go order some food or take a piss or something. I don't know what you do during this fight. I'm going to have to go with Brundage, though. It could be pretty entertaining. We might see a KO in this one. If you're into that kind of thing. But I can also see like Brundage maybe taking down Marquez and holding him down and making it boring. Or you can see Brundage maybe find the chin of Julian Marquez, or Marquez maybe puts on a performance like he did against Sam Alvey or something like that. Like, this is the kind of thing we're dealing with here. I'm surprised this fight's so far up on the card. I'm going to have to go with Brundage. I think he has multiple ways of winning this fight. So I do worry for Marquez in this one. So let's move on to the main event. We have Manel Kape versus Almabayev. Now, I was really thinking about picking Almabayev in this one. But Manel Kape, the reason why I was thinking about Almabayev, I'll start there. The fight against Muhammad Mokaev, I know they're fighting all week, and there's a lot of pressure going into that fight, and there's a lot of animosity, so they're pretty much going after it. Like, this is a pretty emotional fight. And Mokaev was able to get to take a couple takedowns on Manel Kape, even though I think he like pants him at one time or something like that. He like grabbed the shorts or whatever. He's able to take down Manel Kape a couple times, and Mokaev was able to use his stand-up and the takedowns that he used, and was able to win the fight against Manel Kape. And that kind of worries me. And it seems like Manel Kape, outside of the last fight against Bruno Silva, where he did a really good job at defending the takedowns, Manel Kape has always had good takedown defense, but he did a really good job in that last fight against Bruno Silva. It does worry me, because there are certain fights where I'm like, this really shouldn't be close. Like, Manel Kape should be winning this one. Like, there's certain fights with Manel Kape, like the Felipe Dos Santos fight. That fight was on short notice for Felipe Dos Santos, and he looked really good. And from what I remember, Didn't Felipe Dos Santos lose his last fight or something like that? Like, let me see. I haven't looked into this. Yeah, he lost to Andre Lima, who does look pretty decent, but and he did beat Victor Altamirano by split decision. That's the thing. Like, the fight was pretty fun, but I feel like it's a little bit too competitive for what Manel Kape is. So, and Muhammad Mokaev, like, I thought he's going to be able to defend all the takedowns, and it was just 2 performances back to back that looked kind of rough for him, and he was missing weight also. Like, it's just always, it feels like it's always something with Manel Kape, but he did get that good win over Bruno Silva, which I will say. Asu Almabayev can wrestle. He has some good hands, some decent hands, I will say. He outstruck Mateus Nicolau, but it didn't look too great. I just think Manel Kape can defend all the takedowns. That's my worry here. It is a 5-round fight. That last fight from Manel Kape, I believe he got the finish in like the 3rd round, right? Or what round was it? Yeah, round 3. He wasn't like winded at all, and maybe takedown attempts would get him a little bit tired and get the cardio going, and maybe there will be more openings that way. But Asu Almabayev, this is the first big step up in competition. Like, Mateus Nicolau is good, but Jose Johnson's decent. This is top 5. This is Manel Kape, probably one of the better flyweights in the division. Manel Kape's got a lot of power, really good on the feet. I think much better striker than Asu Almabayev. Almabayev is a good wrestler, which I will say, which does worry me for this fight, since Mokaev did have a lot of success. But then you saw what Bruno Silva did, and I don't know. I'm going to have to go Manel Kape, more experience. Cardio looked pretty good. I think he has pretty good 5-round cardio is what my best guess would be. I think he can land some good shots on Asu Almabayev. Maybe we see like a 4th or 5th round TKO. But I can also see this one going to a decision where Kape just stays on the outside, defends some of the takedowns. Asu Almabayev just gets outstruck on the feet, finds the takedowns, but it gets stuffed, and then he's kind of like holding him up against the fence at certain points, and then they separate, and Manel Kape lands a couple good punches on the outside, and then Asu Almabayev just keeps looking for takedowns, and he can't find any openings. I don't know if Asu Almabayev's chin is bad or anything, which is why I'm a little hesitant to pick him to lose by KO. I guess he got KO'd by Tagir Ulanbekov in 2017, so maybe Manel Kape can find a finish here, but I'm going to go Manel Kape winning this fight. Let me know who you guys have down below in the comments. Who do you guys have winning the main event? And I'll see you guys